I'm 95 years old, and I finally understand why my children stopped calling. My name is Margaret, and I spent most of my life believing I was a good mother. The phone sits beside my chair every afternoon. I keep it close enough that I don't have to rush. At my age, rushing isn't wise. I used to jump at every sound it made. Now I let it ring twice before I reach for it, just to steady my hands. It doesn't ring much anymore. I'm not telling this story because I'm angry. I'm not telling it because I think my children failed me. I'm telling it because at 95, you stop pretending you don't know the truth. You start seeing your life as it was, not as you wanted it to be. And the truth is this: my children didn't stop calling because they stopped loving me. They stopped because I slowly taught them how to live without me. I wasn't a cruel woman. I didn't abandon them. I cooked meals. I washed clothes. I made sure homework was done. I stayed up when they were sick. I did what mothers are supposed to do. But I see now that doing what you're supposed to do isn't the same as being close. When I was in my 20s, I married a man named Robert. He was steady and practical. He believed in hard work and quiet discipline. I believed in keeping things together. We didn't have much when we started. A small house with peeling paint and a yard that flooded every spring. I remember standing in that kitchen with a baby on my hip, telling myself I would build a better life for them than the one I had. That became my mission. I organized everything: schedules, meals, doctor visits, school forms. I was the center of the house in the most practical way. If something needed doing, I did it. What I didn't do enough of was sit still. I was always moving, cleaning, planning, fixing, correcting. My son Daniel was the first to pull away. He was a quiet child, always building things with his hands. Once, when he was about 8, he came into the kitchen while I was balancing the checkbook. He tried to show me a wooden birdhouse he'd made in school. I barely looked up. "That's nice," I said. "Put it on the table. I'm busy." He stood there a moment longer than I realized at the time. Then he walked away. I thought nothing of it. I had groceries to plan, bills to pay, dinner to prepare. Years later, I remembered that moment with an ache I can't quite describe. My daughter Emily was different. She wanted to talk about friends, about feelings, about small dramas that seemed trivial to me then. I'd listen for a few minutes before offering solutions. Just ignore her. Focus on your studies. You're being too sensitive. I thought I was helping her become strong. I didn't understand that sometimes she just wanted me to say, "That must have hurt." I wasn't a distant mother in the obvious sense. I was there. I attended parent meetings. I baked for school events. I kept the house clean and the fridge full. But I had a tightness in me, a belief that emotions made things messy, that too much softness led to weakness. Robert was similar. He didn't speak much about feelings either. We functioned well as a team. We ran a household like a well-oiled machine. What we didn't create was space. As the children grew, I became even more focused on doing things right. Good grades, proper manners, respect for authority. When Daniel wanted to pursue art in college, I discouraged it. "That's not practical," I told him. "You need something stable." He nodded. He rarely argued. He chose something else. I told myself I was protecting his future. When Emily called from her dorm room one night, crying about a boy who'd broken her heart, I told her not to let it distract her from her studies. "You'll meet someone better," I said, already thinking about her exams. I didn't hear the silence on the other end. The distance didn't arrive like a storm. It arrived like fog, quiet and gradual. They stopped sharing small things first, then bigger things. Family dinners became shorter. Conversations became surface level. I noticed it, but I blamed age. Teenagers are like that, I told myself. They need independence. I never asked if they also needed me differently. When Robert passed away at 72, the house changed in a way I wasn't prepared for. For the first time, I had to sit still. There was no one to manage except myself. The children came often at first. They helped with paperwork. They stayed for holidays. But something had shifted long before that. I remember one Sunday afternoon, after the funeral arrangements were settled. Daniel was standing in the living room, looking at old photo albums. He said, "You were always so busy, Mom." He didn't say it accusingly, just thoughtfully. I laughed lightly. Well, someone had to keep everything running. He didn't respond. That was the first time I felt a small crack in the story I had told myself about my motherhood. As the years passed, visits became less frequent, then shorter. They had their own families now, their own children, their own busy kitchens and flooded yards and bills to balance. I told myself this was the natural order of things. But there's a difference between independence and distance. One evening, when I was about 88, I realized I hadn't spoken to Emily in nearly a month. I picked up the phone and called her. She answered warmly. We spoke about her children, about the weather, about my health. There was a carefulness in her voice, as if she was speaking to someone fragile. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet house and tried to remember the last time we had a conversation that wasn't polite. I couldn't. I began thinking about the small moments that shaped everything. The birdhouse, the dorm room phone call, the college decision, the times I said, "Not now." Not now is a dangerous phrase. I believe there would always be another chance, another evening, another conversation. There wasn't. I see now that I measured my worth as a mother by how efficiently I kept life running. I didn't measure it by how deeply my children felt understood. They learned to solve their problems without me because I always rushed to fix them. They learned not to burden me because I seemed burdened already. They learned to keep their feelings tidy because I preferred order. I didn't teach them that intentionally. It just happened. There was no big argument, no dramatic falling out, just years of small lessons. Now, at 95, the days are slow. I sit by the window and watch neighbors walk by with their grandchildren. I hear laughter drifting through open doors. I think about how rarely my own children laugh with me. They love me, I know they do. They send cards, they visit on holidays, they call on birthdays. But spontaneous calls, long conversations, those are rare. And I understand why. I made myself necessary for tasks, not for comfort. I was dependable, organized, reliable. But was I safe to be vulnerable with? I'm not sure I was. A few months ago, Daniel called unexpectedly. He sounded tired, truly tired. For a moment, I almost offered advice. That old habit rose up quickly. Instead, I said, "That sounds heavy." There was a pause. He said quietly, "It is." We didn't solve anything that night. We just talked. It was simple, uneventful. But when we hung up, I realized something. I had finally given him something I rarely gave before: room. I can't undo decades. I can't go back and kneel beside an 8-year-old boy holding a wooden birdhouse. I can't sit on that dorm room bed and tell my daughter it's okay to cry. Time doesn't move backward for anyone, not even at 95. What can't be fixed is the natural ease that might have existed between us. The habit of calling just to share something small. The instinct to reach for me in moments of confusion. Those habits are formed early, and I was too focused on shaping outcomes instead of shaping connection. If you're listening to me now, and you still have children under your roof, or grown ones who still call often, don't mistake efficiency for closeness. Don't assume that providing structure is the same as providing comfort. Sit down sometimes with nothing to fix. Let the dishes wait. Let the laundry sit. Ask them how something felt. And when they answer, don't correct it. I'm not saying this as advice from someone who did it well. I'm saying it as someone who learned too late. I don't know how much longer I'll sit in this chair. My hands are thin now. The house is quiet most days. But I don't feel bitter. I feel clear. My children stopped calling often because I raised them to be strong without showing them that strength and softness can live in the same place. I finally understand that now, and in understanding it, there's a kind of quiet acceptance. If the phone rings tomorrow, I'll answer gently. If it doesn't, I'll still sit here, grateful for the years I had, even with the mistakes. I'm 95 years old. My name is Margaret, and I finally understand.